Turn your back, run it down. Go sideways, 4,000 pounds. Uni size everywhere you go, you spot them in team. Hey YouTubers, this is Culture Africa Gal coming at you with a tutorial on how to do a double-sided knotless crochet. Okay, this is something that has been driving me absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if anybody has seen my previous videos where basically, or anybody else's videos where basically you have a knotless crochet, but one side is basically invisible and the other side essentially has the knot. And I just was sick and tired of that. I wanted basically a hairstyle where both sides are knotless. There are a few YouTubers and Instagrammers who basically have marketed their expertise on being able to do a double-sided crochet. I have been trying my best to figure out this crochet for the longest time, and finally I did. And essentially this is my interpretation of that. Again, you can't really see, but it's similar to my other video, again, using the expression hair. Many of you may know that I necessarily am not fond of Marley hair. I've tried it before, I've done it, but for me it's just too much work. It's too much work for me to be able to have to comb through, detangle, then recurl and do all that type of stuff. With the expression hair, I eliminate the whole concept of me having to comb out the hair and do all that type of stuff. And essentially with this hairstyle that I have in here that I'm rocking, with this hairstyle here, I did the invisible part, or if you want to say the knotless crochet. So yes, ladies, this is crochet, okay? Essentially, again, I used 2.5 packs of expression hair. You've noticed this in my other videos, and I use color 1. That's kind of my thing. So anyhow, I did the invisible part, but I did it double-sided. This style took me honestly a long time, and I know there are other people who can really do their crochets in a short amount of time. Unfortunately for me, it takes me a little longer. I'm somewhat of a perfectionist when it comes to my hair, just because I know I'm doing it and I'm paying only for the cost of the hair and then whatever my time. But it did take me a significantly long time. I would probably say about 10 hours it took me. But I think it's just because I was trying to figure out the medium between me trying to do an invisible knotless crochet and making it double-sided. So I did, basically my braid pattern is essentially going all the way back. And I'll go into a little more detail a little bit later. But again, this is my version of what I feel is the double-sided crochet. I'm very happy that I did it, but again, because I had to do a lot of trial and error, it really took me a long time, because there's basically 2 ways. You can either do double-sided crochet in one insert, and I'll explain that later, or you can do a double-sided crochet where essentially you have to do the invisible part on both sides of the braid. Now that's what took me a long time, because since I already got going doing both sides of the braid, I didn't want the density of my hair to be different on one side versus the other, so I just kept going. And I think that's kind of what made me take a long time, because normally if you are doing, if anyone's familiar with doing the crochet themselves, you literally are doing one braid at a time. But I ended up doing one braid twice because I had to do both sides to get the invisible part. Hey YouTubers, so I took out the braid, and I'm just going to show you my braid pattern. Again, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 braids all going back. What I did for my part is that the middle portion is connected into one braid going back, and then I have 2 here that are connected to one braid going back, and everything else has their own braid going back. So essentially the 6 braids that are in the front are all connected into one braid. Okay, so what I am so excited about is the fact that I finally was able to understand the pattern. Now what I will say again is I did take much longer to do this hairstyle because I essentially did the knotless crochet on both sides of the braid. Okay, but I'm going to show you both techniques, both side, one that's going to be both sides of the braids, and the other technique where you just do it in one insert into your braid. I'll explain that later, but just to kind of give you an understanding, again, this is one part. Okay, it's invisible on both sides. Okay, same thing here, invisible on both sides. So essentially, again, invisible on both sides. So essentially, I can part this, and not that I would do it that way, but I can part this in any way that I wanted to. Okay, same thing, invisible on both sides. Okay, so there's just so much versatility with this particular parting that you don't necessarily have to do expression. That's just my preference, but you can do it with Marley, you can do it with free tress, you can do it with any crochet minus the pre-braided. I don't think this would work with the pre-braiding, but any bulk hair, this is going to be the style to do. Okay, so I am so excited that I get to share this with you guys. At first I was like, I'm not sharing this with nobody, but listen, YouTube has been so helpful in teaching me this. So I'm like, hey, if I learn something that I can share to the YouTube crochet community, I'm gonna do that, because I've learned so much from so many other women that why not share it for someone else who's on a budget and doesn't want to have to go outside and go do it. Why not share it? So I look forward to showing you guys. And just to give you guys an idea with the crochet style, with the previous ones where it requires a knot, typically what happens is you'll have the invisible on this side and then you'll have the knots on this side. Okay, but what I realized is that the key point is I wanted it to be knotless. So again, this being one braid, the knots are on the inside of the hair. Okay, that's why it is not necessarily knotless, but it's a concept of concealing the knots. So the knots are in the inside of the braid. Okay, so instead of you having knots on either side, you have knots essentially in the middle of the braid. And essentially by having invisible on both sides, you are concealing your part. Okay, so essentially that's what I'm going to show you. So again, as I described, this is going to be the first technique. Again, this is the latch hook, and you're going to be able to open and close it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pierce under your braid. You're going to grab your hair, close the latch hook, pull it through under the braid. Then you're going to re-pierce your braid, but you're going to pierce it on the top. Pierce it on the top. So you're going to pull your hair through, and you're going to pull the entire other portion of the hair that you've inserted under the braid. And pull through. Again, this is the technique where you have to do both sides of the braid, but as you notice, the knot is on the inside of the braid and you have a knotless technique. And I'll do that one more time. Again, as I described with this technique, you're going to have to do the other side in order for it to be double-sided. So again, you're going to have the open latch, pierce through the braid, place the hair onto the latch hook, close your latch hook, pull through, And again, re-pierce on top of the braid. Pull the pieces of the braid that are on the other side. And then pull the hair through. And now you've completed the other side of the double-sided crochet.
Turn your back, run it down. Go sideways, 4,000 pounds. Winning sides everywhere you go, you spot them in team. One jai me, but one down. Oh, yeah, don't me. Sissy Munditi, we are me. We are me. What you want to me,
So similar to the initial technique, technique number 1, you're going to pierce the braid, take your hair, close the latch, pull through. Then you're going to re-pierce, and this time you're only going to take one portion of the hair and pull through. This eliminates the technique of you having to do both sides. You only have to do one side of the hair, and that possibly may eliminate bulk. So I will go ahead and do the technique one more time. So again, you're going to pierce the braid, grab your hair on the latch hook, close your latch hook, pull the hair through under the braid. Then you're going to re-pierce your braid on top, pull one of the sides of your hair as you're pulling the other side, and you're going to pull it through. And essentially that's it, your double-sided crochet. And with that, your knots are concealed in the braid.